Deserts don't have water, and everyone knows that. But few people realize that in Israel, they're actually trying to bring a seaport into the heart of the desert.
Every one of our national leaders in the times of the Bible goes through a time in the desert to be able to enter into the promise. And here we are again in Israel today.
They're moving an amount of rock equivalent to 13 Giza pyramids and pumping 80 million cubic feet of water into a hole 5 meters deep. However, the desert port is just one part of the project. Will this become a wonder in the desert or Israel's biggest disaster? Join us as we unveil the crazy idea that just might change the world. The big reveal. In August 2025, Israel's Ministry of Transport and Road Safety released a short statement. Within its 22 lines was a plan that would quietly redefine how goods enter and move across the country. The ministry announced plans to develop inland ports and logistics hubs deep in the Negev and Arava deserts, far from the coastline. For decades, Israel's ports followed a simple pattern. Ships arrived, containers were unloaded, customs cleared them on site, and trucks drove away. Haifa served the north, Ashdod managed the center, and Eilat handled the south. The system worked, but by 2025, it had reached its limits. Coastal space was running out. Expanding cities, rising populations, and industrial growth strained port zones. Land near the sea grew costly, roads congested, and ships waited offshore as storage yards filled. The ports had reached physical capacity. The solution was to move key operations inland. Customs clearance, warehousing, inspections, and distribution would shift to desert-based facilities connected by rail and highway to coastal terminals. Space was abundant, and logistics could flow more efficiently. These inland sites would not be simple storage yards, but fully functional extensions of the seaports. A container arriving by ship could travel more than 100 kilometers inland before being processed. In this model, a port is defined by the speed and efficiency of its cargo movement, not by proximity to the sea. Globally, Israel is adopting a system already proven elsewhere. China uses inland dry ports to ease coastal congestion. The United States operates major logistics hubs in Chicago and Dallas. And across Europe, inland centers in Germany and the Netherlands streamline trade with seaports. Israel's decision places it firmly within this global trend. The Negev and Arava were chosen for their strategic location, positioned between the Mediterranean ports to the west and Eilat to the south. These sparsely populated areas offer ample land, low costs, and fewer development constraints. For planners, the inland network offers 3 clear advantages: reduced coastal congestion, expanded logistics capacity, and stronger national connectivity between the sea, the desert, and the city. Security is another factor. Coastal ports are exposed during conflict or regional tension. Inland facilities add resilience, allowing trade to continue, even if maritime areas are disrupted. The government's program will unfold in phases. The first stage focuses on building logistics hubs along existing and planned railway lines, north of Beersheba, near Dimona, and along the proposed Eilat rail corridor. Each site will feature container yards, customs zones, bonded warehouses, refrigerated storage, and secure truck terminals. Containers will be sealed electronically at seaports and moved inland by rail or through designated truck routes. Customs checks will take place at the inland facilities, easing congestion at the waterfront. Legally, these hubs will function as extensions of the seaports, meaning goods will be considered at the port once they reach the inland center. Relocating customs inland will free valuable coastal land for faster cargo handling and alternative uses such as tourism, housing, or environmental restoration. Economically, the plan boosts port efficiency, reduces ship waiting times, increases capacity without coastal expansion, and drives new development in underused desert regions. For the Negev and Arava, it means infrastructure growth, industry, and employment. At the policy level, the shift marks a major change. Israel now views its desert interior not as empty land, but as a strategic logistics asset. Ports depend on space, and the desert provides it. Behind a brief announcement lies a long-term transformation. By moving cargo inland, Israel is laying the foundation for a unified freight corridor from the Red Sea at Eilat across the desert to the Mediterranean coast. But infrastructure alone cannot sustain transformation. To make the inland port network viable, Israel needed a direct, high-capacity link between sea and desert. That link would come from a long-delayed project, one that could finally connect Eilat to the nation's heart by rail. The Eilat Negev Arava Rail Project. For decades, a question lingered over Israel's southern desert. Why did a port exist without a railway linking it to the rest of the country? The port of Eilat, Israel's gateway to Asia and the Gulf, stood isolated on the Red Sea. Every container that arrived had only one route north, trucks moving slowly along desert highways. As global trade expanded, that bottleneck became more apparent. Eilat remained a strategic outpost, unable to reach its full potential because one crucial link was missing: a railway. Alongside the Inland Port Initiative, the Ministry of Transport formally revived a long-delayed project, a 220-kilometer freight and passenger line connecting Eilat to the Negev and Israel's national rail network. Unlike earlier proposals, this plan included secured funding, an approved route, and a construction framework. This time, it was not a discussion, but execution. The line will begin in Eilat's port district and run north through the Arava Valley, between the Jordanian border and the Negev Mountains, before turning west toward Dimona to connect with existing national rail infrastructure. It will feature double tracks, full electrification, and capacity for both freight and high-speed passenger trains. With an estimated cost of $8 billion, it stands among Israel's largest ever infrastructure investments. The goal is straightforward. Eilat must become a functioning trade corridor, not a dead-end port. Without a rail link, cargo from Eilat has long competed with road traffic, forcing trucks to cross already congested routes between the Red Sea and Israel's industrial centers. This inefficiency discouraged carriers, making Eilat less competitive than Haifa or Ashdod. The new line changes that. A single freight train can move the load of hundreds of trucks, dramatically cutting travel time between Eilat and the Negev. The result is a continuous flow of cargo from the Red Sea to inland destinations, transforming Eilat from an isolated terminal into an integrated logistics gateway. The ministry's plan aligns with a clear logic. The rail positions Eilat as Israel's southern entry point for goods from Asia, India, and the Gulf, bypassing coastal congestion entirely. It is not only a transport project, but a redefinition of geography. Israel's narrow coastal belt has little room left for large-scale infrastructure. The desert, by contrast, offers open space and strategic depth. The Eilat line establishes a new axis of national development, from the sea across the desert to the interior. The system works in tandem with the Inland Port Program. Containers arriving at Eilat will be sealed and transferred directly by rail to logistics hubs deep in the Negev, where customs, warehousing, and distribution will take place. The two projects are interdependent. Each enables the other. Beyond economics, the rail line serves national resilience. Israel's northern ports are within range of regional conflicts. Eilat lies farther south, away from major population centers and potential disruptions. In an emergency, it could ensure continuity of trade. The project also holds civilian benefits. For the first time, desert communities and tourism centers will connect to the national rail network. Eilat, currently a 6-hour drive from the north, could be reached by train in just over 2 hours. This will shift domestic travel patterns, reduce internal flights, and strengthen social and economic ties between the periphery and the center. Economically, the ministry expects the new corridor to increase competition in freight rates. With multiple national logistics routes, importers and exporters gain flexibility, driving down costs and improving efficiency. Engineering the line presents challenges. The Arava Valley is an ecologically sensitive zone, home to fragile desert ecosystems. The plan includes environmental safeguards, wildlife crossings, defined infrastructure corridors, and agreements with local councils to ensure the railway integrates with, rather than disrupts, the landscape. Strategically, the Eilat rail symbolizes a shift in Israel's outlook. The desert is no longer viewed as space, but as a national logistics resource. The route carries geopolitical weight as well. Situated near Jordan, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia, it could one day connect to regional trade routes should normalization with the Gulf states advance. Historically, Eilat was built in the 1950s to give Israel access to the Red Sea after the Gulf of Aqaba crisis, a maritime lifeline independent of neighboring nations. The 2025 rail project represents the next phase of that independence, connecting the port to the heart of the country and the country to global trade. As railways began carving new paths through the desert, attention turned back to the sea. Along Israel's coastline, another project was quietly advancing, one that aimed to reshape how goods reach one of the region's most fragile and contested territories, Gaza. The Maritime Project. Far from public attention, a new project was quietly taking shape along the Mediterranean waters facing Gaza, one that could redefine how the territory receives goods from the outside world. In 2024, The world watched as a temporary U.S.-built floating pier was anchored off Gaza's coast to deliver humanitarian aid. It was short-lived, repeatedly damaged by storms. Yet while global cameras focused on that effort, Israel was quietly developing plans for something far more permanent: a controlled maritime access point. By mid-2025, Israel's Ministry of Transport and Road Safety confirmed a major policy shift: plans for a port serving Gaza. Not a Palestinian-run seaport, but a fully monitored logistics corridor, operated and secured by Israel. The design centers on two components: a fixed offshore terminal, built within Israeli-controlled waters, where ships would unload cargo, and a secure fenced corridor connecting the terminal directly to Gaza. Every shipment would undergo Israeli inspection before entering the corridor. Though it appeared new, the idea had existed for years. As early as 2011, former Transportation Minister Israel Katz proposed an artificial island port for Gaza, a floating complex with a seaport, airport, and hotels. It was dismissed as unrealistic but resurfaced in 2017. Still, no plan advanced until the 2024 to 2025 humanitarian crisis changed the equation. With border crossings damaged and aid flows collapsing, the temporary U.S. pier exposed a clear need. Gaza required a maritime supply route, and Israel needed a secure mechanism to control it. The new plan balances both, allowing goods in while maintaining complete Israeli oversight. Under the system, ships would unload at the offshore terminal. Cargo would then move to Israeli inspection facilities before being sealed and transported through the monitored corridor into Gaza. Israel retains complete control of the docking zone, screening systems, and corridor security. The concept resembles a controlled lifeline, an arm extending from the sea into Gaza without opening a physical gateway into Israel itself. Official documents describe the initiative not only as a humanitarian measure, but also as a regional trade flow. The phrase hints at broader ambitions: integrating Gaza's controlled commerce into Israel's wider logistics network and regional trade routes. If realized, the port would allow goods to enter from the Mediterranean, pass through Israeli inspection, and reach Gaza without any land border contact. The corridor would be sealed, fenced, and continuously monitored with cameras, motion sensors, and remote systems, with no unauthorized access or side routes. The announcement came as Israel faced mounting international pressure to expand humanitarian access to Gaza. The proposal offered a solution that appeared cooperative, yet preserved complete Israeli control. For now, the project continues quietly along the coast. Cranes, concrete, and steel forming a new logistics ecosystem designed to provide Gaza access to goods without relinquishing control over the gateway itself. While construction quietly continued along Gaza's coast, another project, far larger in scale and ambition, was being revived deep in Israel's desert. A project not limited to humanitarian logistics, but one that could reshape global trade routes themselves. The Ben Gurion Canal. The idea of carving a new sea route across Israel did not start in the 21st century. It didn't even begin with Israel. The roots of this project stretch back more than 160 years to a time when the world was still discovering what global trade could become. In the mid-19th century, the British Empire ruled the seas. Every route, every shortcut, every harbor mattered. British engineers dreamed of connecting three seas, the Red Sea, the Dead Sea, and the Mediterranean Sea, to form a massive water corridor through the heart of the Middle East. But there was a problem that seemed impossible. The Dead Sea lies more than 430 meters below global sea level. Any canal leading into it would unleash roaring waterfalls, unpredictable water currents, soil erosion, and uncontrollable flooding. The dream was daring, but at that time, completely unrealistic. The idea was set aside, but not forgotten. Decades later, in 1956, Egypt's Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal. Overnight, a strategic passage that served Western trade interests became a tightly controlled Egyptian asset. The world realized one thing: whoever controls a man-made sea gate controls global trade. That moment triggered new thinking in Washington. The United States wanted alternatives, leverage against a canal that could be closed during war or diplomatic tension. Israel, newly formed and aligned with the West, suddenly became the subject of a secret question. Could a brand new canal be carved through Israel's desert? In July 1963, inside the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California, an American scientist named H.D. Maccabee wrote a classified memo. It suggested something shocking: digging a canal across the Negev desert using nuclear explosions, more than 500 underground detonations. The United States explored the idea of blasting a canal out of the desert using nuclear bombs. The memo, marked secret, remained hidden until 1993. When it finally surfaced, the document stated clearly that such a canal would provide Israel with a strategically valuable alternative to the Suez Canal. It would dramatically boost the region's economy. But the plan was too dangerous and too controversial. In the end, the nuclear corridor was abandoned. Yet, the idea refused to die. Israel itself resurrected the vision. They gave it a new name, the Ben Gurion Canal, honoring David Ben Gurion, Israel's first prime minister, the man often called the founding father of the State of Israel. Ben Gurion believed the Negev desert was Israel's future. He once said that Israel's destiny would either be built in the Negev or not at all. Naming the canal after him was symbolic. It was a tribute to a leader who believed that the desert could be transformed into the center of the nation's development. The canal's master plan stretches almost 300 kilometers from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean. It begins in the south, at the port of Eilat, touching the edge of the Gulf of Aqaba, where Israel meets Jordan. From there, the canal cuts north through the long, dry Araba Valley, squeezed between the Negev Mountains on one side and the highlands of Jordan on the other. For roughly 100 kilometers, the proposed canal runs through empty, open wilderness. Before reaching the Dead Sea, the canal turns west, slicing through a natural valley in the Negev mountain range. It then curves north again, bypassing the Gaza Strip completely, and finally touches the Mediterranean shoreline near Ashkelon, a major coastal city. This route was not chosen randomly. It was selected because of what it could do. To understand the magnitude of the project, we need to zoom out. The Suez Canal, when it opened in 1867, changed global shipping forever. Before the Suez Canal, ships traveling between Europe and Asia had to sail all the way around the southern tip of Africa, hugging the Cape of Good Hope. This journey added thousands of kilometers and weeks to shipping time. Suez shortened the route. It made trade faster, cheaper, and predictable. Oil, gas, consumer goods, raw materials, everything began flowing through its narrow, man-made passage. Today, the Suez Canal handles about 12% of global trade. A blockage there sends shockwaves through world markets. But the Suez Canal has weaknesses. It is narrow and congested, and when a ship gets stuck, the world economy freezes. The Ben Gurion Canal offers a different blueprint. Unlike the Suez Canal, which has sandy banks, the Israeli canal would be carved mostly through solid rock. That means the walls would require almost no ongoing maintenance. Erosion, which constantly threatens the Suez structure, would not pose the same level of risk in Israel. The Israeli plan includes two separate canal arms, essentially two water lanes, one for northbound ships, one for southbound. That simple design feature allows traffic to flow in both directions simultaneously, eliminating the Suez bottleneck. Each canal branch would stretch roughly 50 meters deep and close to 200 meters wide. The depth alone makes it 10 meters deeper than the Suez Canal. Ships nearly 300 meters long and 110 meters wide, the largest cargo ships in the world, could pass through without difficulty. There is another layer to the plan. Israel wants more than just a water corridor. The government proposed developing new towns along the canal's sides, hotels, resorts, restaurants, and entire urban centers. The canal would not only move ships, it would shape cities, trade zones, and tourism hubs. The numbers reveal how massive the project really is. Almost 300 kilometers of canal length, 5 years of non-stop work, more than 300,000 engineers and technicians, cost estimates between $16 and $55 billion, and a potential revenue of up to $6 billion every year. In 2020, a breakthrough happened. During the Abraham Accords, when Israel normalized relations with the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan, a quiet but powerful agreement was signed. Israel's state-owned Europe-Asia Pipeline Company and an Emirati firm, MED-RED Landbridge, agreed to use Israel's Eilat-Ashkelon pipeline to transport oil from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean. It was the first time a Gulf nation formally partnered with Israel on a project related to shipping and energy corridors. With that alliance in place, the canal idea surged again. In April 2021, Israel publicly announced that work on the Ben Gurion Canal could begin by June. Newspapers, analysts, and maritime experts watched closely. But then, nothing happened. Construction never began. Some analysts believe Israel's renewed control of parts of Gaza today may be linked to securing the canal pathway. No official confirmation exists, but the theory is widespread. To build the canal, Israel must fully control the land corridor without resistance. Today, the canal remains in planning documents and government discussions, but one thing is sure: the world is paying attention. because if the canal is built, everything changes. Two global sea gates, Suez and Ben Gurion, are only a short distance apart. Whoever controls both routes holds a significant share of international trade power. For nearly 2 centuries, the dream of a second canal has drifted between nations, wars, leaders, and ideas. From British explorers to American nuclear engineers to modern Israeli planners, the same vision persists: to carve a new sea through the desert. And every time the world assumes the idea is finished, it resurfaces stronger than before. But one question remains: why does Israel need its own canal? The country trapped by the sea. More than half of Israel is covered by dry, barren desert, land that can't grow crops, can't easily support cities, and certainly can't host a seaport. Surrounding this harsh landscape are nations that haven't always been friendly toward Israel. That leaves the country with one crucial problem: it has no safe land routes to bring in the essentials its people need to survive. So instead, Israel lives and breathes through the sea. Almost everything the country relies on, fuel, food, technology, cars, and even medicine, arrives by ship. Not some of it, but 98%. And that number tells the story. If anything stops the flow of ships, Israel itself grinds to a halt. Only 2 major ports carry this massive responsibility: Haifa and Ashdod, both in the north, facing the Mediterranean Sea. These ports are the lungs of the nation. Goods come in, goods go out, and Israel keeps breathing. But there's a catch, one big enough to threaten the entire economy. To reach those ports, ships don't have the luxury of choice. There are no alternate oceans, no backup waterways. Every vessel from Asia must pass through a single, narrow, man-made doorway, the Suez Canal. And that doorway isn't controlled by Israel. For decades, maps of global trade have revolved around the Suez Canal. Built in the 19th century, expanded in the 20th, and burdened in the 21st century, Suez handles nearly 12% of global trade and 30% of global container traffic. Every day, massive container vessels travel through that 193-kilometer waterway, linking the Mediterranean to the Red Sea, carrying goods from Asia to Europe and eventually to the rest of the world. The Suez Canal stretches about 120 miles, connecting the Red Sea to the Mediterranean. Traders rely on it because, without it, ships would need to sail thousands of extra miles around Africa. On a map, Suez looks like a lifeline, but in reality, it's more like a bottleneck. At its narrowest point, the canal is just 670 feet wide. Modern container ships can be more than 1,300 feet long and nearly 200 feet tall. Imagine trying to drive a bus through an alley built for motorcycles. That's what ships face in the Suez. Apart from this, every ship that wants to reach Israel's northern ports must pay Egypt a toll, and that toll has exploded. The cost to cross the canal has risen to $700,000 per transit, over 10 times more than it was 20 years ago. At any moment, Egypt can change the toll, slow traffic, or stop certain ships from passing. But there was a stick that broke the camel's back. The Ever Given disaster didn't just block the Suez Canal, it exposed Israel's greatest weakness. For a nation that lives by the sea, dependence is a risk. And that risk led to a question inside Israel's highest offices. What if the country built its own canal? The moment the world stopped. In March 2021, Israel, like the rest of the world, discovered that a single mistake could shut down the global economy. The Ever Given, one of the largest container ships ever built, lost steering control during a sandstorm and wind gusts while entering the narrowest point of the Suez Canal. Its bow slammed into one bank and its stern hit the other. The ship became a steel wall blocking a waterway used by nearly 1/3 of the world's container traffic. For 6 days, nothing could pass. Global shipping operates on tight schedules. Container delays in one country can delay factories, supermarkets, and pharmaceuticals in another. When the Ever Given stopped, the world stopped with it. What most people didn't see was the chain reaction. Oil tankers carrying millions of barrels stalled at sea. Car manufacturers in Europe paused production because key components were stuck on ships. Even the retailers in Asia and the Middle East were affected when they ran out of inventory. Companies began rerouting vessels around the Cape of Good Hope, adding 10 to 14 extra days to voyages. Fuel costs soared. Insurance companies declared the canal a high-risk disruption zone. Economists estimated that the blockage delayed 12% of global trade, goods worth about $60 to $70 billion, before the ship was freed. It was a moment of truth, and Israel was watching because Israel's lifeline to Asia, its fastest route to the world, flows through that same canal. But this crisis was not new. Israel had seen this movie before. In June 1967, during the Six-Day War, Egypt completely closed the Suez Canal. A closure not of 6 days, but 8 years. From 1967 to 1975, the canal was sealed with block ships and mines. 15 ships became trapped inside the canal for years, known as the Yellow Fleet. Global shipping was forced to sail around Africa, an extra 4,000 miles. The economic consequences were massive. Shipping prices nearly doubled. Western Europe faced fuel shortages, and Japan's shipping costs to Europe skyrocketed. For Israel, the impact was strategic, not just economic. Israel had just captured Eilat, its tiny outlet to the Red Sea, its only pathway to Asian markets. Yet that victory meant little if the canal itself remained shut. Israel understood an uncomfortable reality. Its connection to the world could be cut off by a decision made in Cairo. The closure shaped decades of Israeli strategic thinking. 2021 was the warning shot. When the Ever Given blocked the canal, Israel didn't suffer the same immediate economic losses as Europe or Asia, but it suffered something deeper: confirmation of its dependency. The blockage triggered internal briefings inside Israel's Ministry of Transport and Ministry of Finance. The Ever Given became the case study in those discussions. That same year, major shipping companies, including Maersk and MSC, quietly began exploring alternative trade routes, including land bridges and dry ports. And then, in 2024, the unthinkable happened. Over 2,000 ships voluntarily avoided the Suez Canal altogether due to attacks and insecurity in the Red Sea. Many vessels once again circled Africa, adding weeks to voyages. History didn't just repeat, it evolved. For Israel, it was the message that planners had feared but could no longer ignore. Suez is not just a canal, it is a point of control, and Israel does not control it. That vulnerability became the fuel behind Israel's inland dry port ambitions, its rail to Mediterranean freight corridor proposals, and the thought that perhaps Israel should build its own alternative canal. Thanks for watching. Now check out the videos popping up on screen for more unbelievable stories.